Israel has hit a school building in Gaza with an airstrike. Palestinian authorities reporting that 100 people have been killed. Three bombs hit Al Tabin School, located in the Daraj district of Gaza City, on Saturday. The school had served as a shelter for displaced Palestinians, and Gaza's Civil Defense Authority called the incident a horrific massacre. Fadl Naim, head of Al-Aqli Hospital, where many of the casualties were taken, told the BBC that around 70 victims were identified in the hours after the strike. The remains of many others were reportedly so badly disfigured that identification was difficult. The Israeli military claimed its air force struck a command and control center that served as a hideout for Hamas terrorists and commanders. That's the Israeli claim. And today, Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer told Sky News that civilian casualties were inevitable.
We'll always try and keep hostages, to keep our all civilians out of harm's way. That's a key part of our strategy. But the way that Hamas and Islamic Jihad fight us, they make it inevitable that there are civilian casualties. No matter how hard we try, they make it inevitable. Look, the only battle, the only front of this war which we are losing on, it's not the military front. We're beating Hamas, we're destroying them, we're shattering their battalions. It's the PR battle. We recognize that. And this is precisely what Hamas is after. This is their strategy. They can't beat us on the battlefield, but they think that they can beat us in PR terms. It is Hamas that is responsible for any civilian casualties in Gaza. They're not upset that there are civilian casualties. They wish there were 10 times more, because it's a key part of their strategy. We know that, but we're going after the terrorists. We're not going to stop until this genocidal organization is taken away from the leadership of Gaza, to give Gazans a better future and us a better future living in peace here.
It's so psychopathic. Like, they make us do it. We don't want to kill them. We really don't want to kill them, but they make us kill them. They make us kill them because the Palestinians want to die, because that's good for PR. So don't show when we kill them, because if we kill them and then you show that on your TV screens, then they're winning the PR war, because we might have all of these really, really high-tech weapons, but when they get their video cameras out and show that we're killing people, that looks bad for us. So you're playing their game. You're playing the terrorist game, is essentially what he's saying. Really, really, I mean, we've shown you this guy before. I mean, if you're talking about Israel losing a PR game, putting this sociopath on television is a questionable decision. Let's look at some more of that exchange.
You seem to be dismissing the deaths of 81 people as a PR coup for Hamas. These are mothers, children, these are families, many of whom have been displaced from other parts of Gaza, who wouldn't have anywhere else to go, who very probably had very little choice about where they were able to get shelter, whether or not Hamas were using the same building.
So, Jane, firstly, that's quite offensive to say that. My point to you is that we released the photographs of 19 terrorists with blood on their hands, their names, their crimes, the organization, and we targeted them and we defeated them. We used extremely precise intelligence. Our footage, and we've released this footage, shows very clearly there were no civilians in the area at the time of the blast. Look, we have to wake up.
That's not what Save the Children say,
right?
Though, and they are also there on the ground.
We need to have our eyes open on this. This is a PR battle which we're facing as well. You know, Hamas wants these images to be shown in the Western media. Our info is that we got these 19 terrorists. We're pleased about that because, you know, the world's a better place without them. We can move on in our battle to
but
try
what
and restore
about the other
peace.
81 is my point.
There aren't any 81. That's the truth of the matter. There aren't any.
That is not what charities are saying there.
Right. So unfortunately, lots of people like UNRWA, which is also a charity, they actually participated.
But this is Save the Children. This isn't UNRWA.
So I don't know about Save the Children. But what I know is this is a PR battle. I've given you our intelligence. We know that 19 were killed. We're looking into if there were any other collateral damage, which of course we'll apologize for if that is the case. But what I'm telling you is we can say categorically, when we fired these precise munitions, calibrated perfectly to get precisely to the terrorists, to make sure there aren't any civilian casualties. There weren't any other civilians in the area. So any other ideas which might come afterwards, it's incumbent on world media to be critical, to look at these issues with a critical eye, because Hamas have a history of lying.
You know who else has a history of lying? Israel, right? And Israel's prime minister. This idea, you've got to look at everything with a critical lens. These are the same people who said they burnt babies. And then if anyone questioned whether or not Hamas burnt babies, which was a complete lie, basically implied they were anti-Semitic. Right? It says, you've got to look at it in a critical lens, unless we're talking about what they've done, and then you're anti-Semitic if you look at it with a critical lens. Ash, what do you think of this guy sort of phrasing this as sort of, this is a PR battle? Because if every charity in the world, every children's charity in the world is lined up against you, it's not just that you're losing a PR battle, you're losing a moral battle, right? You're in the wrong.
Well, look, the first thing to say is, how do you know when an Israeli government spokesperson is lying? The simple answer is that their lips are moving. This is an entire political class which, when it is contesting space within English language media, has one mission and one mission only. And that is to cast doubt on the material realities of what occupation, bombardment, genocide, and ethnic cleansing means for the Palestinian people. And so when you can get away with outright fabrications, such as burnt babies on October 7th, you go with that. The rest of the time, it's all about trying to inject a seed of doubt, a sort of, an aura that makes all information untrustworthy, because ultimately that benefits the status quo, which is a genocide and a wider project of ethnic cleansing, which is being carried out by the Israeli state. So I think that's what it's about first and foremost. So when he talks about it as a PR battle, that's not because he's failed to see the moral dimensions of what's going on. No, I imagine he understands the moral dimensions quite well. He happens to think that the project of Israeli Zionism is it takes priority over whatever that might mean for the Palestinians. And I understand how very politically motivated people can come to completely immoral positions. I understand that. But it's a mistake to think that he doesn't understand what he's doing by saying, well, it's a PR battle. It interjects this note of doubt and cynicism and skepticism whenever the viewer or another journalist is looking at footage, looking at information which is coming out of Gaza, because you go, well, this could just be Hamas PR, right? It's one of those things where your framing and your analysis moves faster than your ability to process the facts, because ultimately you're seeing footage, right? You're seeing information which is being confirmed by children's charities like Save the Children, but it's just about trying to put a filter of skepticism and doubt between the public, and in particular the Anglophone public in America, and to a lesser extent Britain, and to make people just doubt what they're seeing, because every millisecond of doubt, every microsecond of skepticism, that's something which benefits Israel. It allows them to do what they're doing with full diplomatic cover of Western nations, and aided and abetted by vast sums of military aid by the United States. So that's my take on what's going on. He knows that it's not really a PR war. It's a real war, right? It's a genocidal war in which children and civilians are being massacred on an absolutely unimaginable scale. But by saying, oh, well, it's all PR, I think it also is something which taps into a sort of, I don't know, almost like a dissociative impulse that people have when they're, watching news, watching current affairs, looking at things in the newspapers, and they go, well, all information's untrustworthy. Everything's PR, isn't it? It's not something which necessarily builds trust in Israel, but it's something which casts doubt on the accounts of Palestinians.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it just explicitly invites cynicism, doesn't it? When you think of PR, what do you think? You think cynical. And so sort of I don't think anyone, sees that guy on television and finds him particularly persuasive or likable, but maybe you think, well, he's a PR guy, that it's all PR, it's all a game. That's kind of the message that's being given there. Let's talk about some of the regional developments. The airstrike on that school came amid escalating tensions and fears that Israel's onslaught on Gaza will provoke a wider conflict. Hezbollah launched drone strikes against northern Israel last week in response to the assassination of one of its commanders, Ali Jamal al-Din Jawad, by Israel. Israel killed 2 people in the south of Lebanon in a drone strike on Sunday, and on Monday, Hezbollah launched 30 rockets at northern Israel. The US says it is strengthening its forces in the Middle East. This all follows Israel's assassination of Hamas's political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. After that, Iran warned that the attack would not go unpunished. An attack by Iran and Hezbollah does seem increasingly inevitable at some point. The governments of the UK, France, and Germany have intervened with a statement that has a curious omission. See if you can spot the missing word. The leaders salute other countries on their work towards a ceasefire before saying this: "We agree that there can be no further delay. We have been working with all parties to prevent escalation and will spare no effort to reduce tensions and find a path to stability. The fighting must end now, and all hostages still detained by Hamas must be released. The people of Gaza need urgent and unfettered delivery and distribution of aid. We are deeply concerned by the heightened tensions in the regions and united in our commitment to de-escalation and regional stability. In this context, and in particular, we call on Iran and its allies to refrain from attacks that would further escalate regional tensions and jeopardize the opportunity to agree a ceasefire and the release of hostages. They will bear responsibility for actions that jeopardize this opportunity for peace and stability. No country or nation stands to gain from a further escalation in the Middle East." So did you spot the missing word? When they're talking about the risks of this developing into a wider regional war, you heard about Hamas, you heard about Iran and their allies. You didn't hear about Israel, right? If you just read this without context, you think that Hamas are at war with Iran, right? Because they haven't mentioned the key player, right? The player that is assassinating other people's leaders in their country and is clearly, really, really looking for a broader war. And you blame everyone else. You don't even mention them. Ash, people sort of complain a lot that when people talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict, Israel often gets sort of used in the passive voice. Palestinian killed after Israel used drone or something like that. It's never Israel killed Palestinian. Here, it's just Israel doesn't even exist, right? There's a danger of a wider war. It's going to be kind of near this. I don't know what that country that begins with an I. Well, I don't know. Probably not involved.
I mean, it's a little bit like that Sky Sports meme. There's danger of a regional war, Chris Camera, but from who? And it's like, I don't know, Jeff. I don't know. Danger of a regional war? I don't know. I mean, it's astonishing, and I think that I think that people can see through it, right? Because even though, I would say people aren't necessarily massively politicized all the time. We have a very politicized audience, and I'm very grateful for them. But most people aren't. But I think the average person reading it would take a scan and they go, "Yeah, but like Israel is involved, aren't they? Right? Like they are bombarding Gaza, aren't they? Right?" And that would be someone who wouldn't even consider themselves to be especially pro-Palestinian or especially informed. They could see from space that there is a big Israel-shaped void within that statement. And I think that goes straight to the heart of what's so dysfunctional about Western foreign policy in this era, in this area, because the West, and in particular America, has made the calculation that Israel is a net benefit to its interests in the Middle East. All right, that's the reason why America gives as much military support to Israel as it does. It considers, Israel to be an outpost of Western interests. But when the government of Israel is no longer interested in any way playing nice, right? So it's not just about ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, which Western nations had decided they could live with, as long as it was done, slowly enough and, with enough sad faces all around. Ultimately, they could live with it. But when you've got, a completely unhinged political culture in Israel, one which is becoming even further radicalized from year to year, generation to generation, going, hey, what we really want? It's a massive war with Iran. The West has backed itself into a position where it can't exert any leverage anymore. It's unwilling to exert any leverage. And I think that was the great, innovation of Netanyahu. And I think that's why Netanyahu has been such a powerful force within Israeli politics for so long. I think he learned how to play the reverse Uno on America, Britain, and other Western nations, which is to go, no, actually, you've given us a carte blanche, and you can't give us a carte blanche on the ethnic cleansing and say that we can't do whatever the fuck else we want. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it because you want this Western outpost more than you want regional stability. And time after time, he's called America's and Europe's bluff on it. And I don't see why this would be any different. That is his go-to tactic when it comes to, stretching and moving back those red lines that Joe Biden liked to talk about so much. And that's how you end up with such an absurd statement, Michael, is because Netanyahu played the reverse Uno, and the West is unwilling to use what leverage it has.